Well, if you're still looking to buy a Switch 2 and you don't really feel like you could justify a $450 or a $500 price point this holiday season, we have some good news today as the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 is being cut to an all-time low at one particular retailer. And what's really cool about this is we already have direct evidence out there that in actuality, people are able to get this price matched at places like Walmart, Best Buy, Target, etc. because most major retailers in the US do price match any legit retailer, whether it's an online or in-person sale, and that's really important. So if one retailer goes on sale, everybody benefits from that here, at least in the United States. Also, it's been on sale at several different locations, going for cheaper than MSRP in Europe as well. We have to talk about this and what is going on. On top of that, we have one additional story we're tagging along with this because it's also just kind of, well, it's related to Switch 2 anyways. We talked about the size cartridges and all of that before, how Nintendo's making like 16 and 32 gigabyte. Technically, we didn't have that 100% confirmed. That was just coming from people like me and Nintendo and others that had spoken to our sources. But now we have a public source, a public developer that essentially confirmed it and then got in trouble and had to delete it. And we got to talk about that. And also the fact that this change has led to them taking a risk, a very interesting risk in bringing their game to full physical when they originally announced it as a game key card. And we have to talk about the ramifications of that and a greater discussion about how much we're willing to spend on a physical copy of a game versus a digital copy of a game, and are we willing to pay higher prices than maybe you have to pay on other platforms. Look, guys, this is a jam-packed show, and before we dive in, look, we are giving away 3 copies of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. You can play a demo actually right now on your Switch 2. If you happen to pick up a new Switch 2 today because of the new price point, look, guys, go check out that demo. Maybe you want to pick this up in January. Digital Foundry also dropped an analysis video, and look, it's kind of kicking the crap out of the PlayStation 4 version, which is no shocker because it's actually the PS5 version of the game. And there's even some minor aspects that are even better than the PS5 version, such as less shimmering. At least this is according to Digital Foundry. That being said, folks, go ahead and check out our giveaway down in the link in the pinned comment or the description. And before we do anything else, I have to tell you about today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Gameloft for Disney Speedstorm, a fast-paced hero combat racing game set on the high-speed tracks of iconic Disney and Pixar worlds. It's completely free to play and available wherever you game, from mobile and PC to, yes, even the Nintendo Switch 2. And because the game features a cross-play and cross-save feature, you can play with your friends no matter what platform they game on. Some of my favorite moments in the game came from choosing your favorite characters, such as Aladdin for me, leveling them up and boosting their individual stats and taking people on in team races. But there are many modes in the game, and one such enjoyable one is the Season Tour, which is a single-player style campaign mode. A new update is dropping featuring Judy, Nick, and Flash from Zootopia, helping you all celebrate the release of Zootopia 2. What's really great about this update is, in addition to the characters, there is a brand new Zootopia map. How exciting! Beyond the new content update, there is a speedrun event happening as well. They have partnered with speedrun.com to run an exciting event with rewards and even a cash prize for the winner. The event runs from December 19th through December 27th. You will be doing a solo speedrun across 10 tracks and have playable characters in Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde available. You can find out more about the game and check it out for yourself through the link in the pinned comment or the description, or by scanning the QR code on screen. You can use the code on screen to get in-game gifts. Once again, thank you to Gameloft for sponsoring this video. All right, without further ado, yes, the Nintendo Switch 2 is now at the cheapest price point you've ever seen it. In fact, it is impossible right now, at least for a brand new console, to get a PlayStation 5 cheaper than you can get a Nintendo Switch 2. For those who don't know, PlayStation 5 has been on sale all holiday season, about $100 off every version. So the PlayStation 5 Pro is $650 right now. The PlayStation 5 your base model with the disc drive, that's usually $550, that's $450, and the all digital that usually sells for $500 is $400. You know what else is $400? The Nintendo Switch 2. That's right, Micro Center. Micro Center is literally selling Nintendo Switch 2 in store for $399.99. They're not available for shipping. Again, it says, pickup's not available. This is just because it has St. Louis Park, which to me is out in Minneapolis. They are actually sold out of this. And I'm sure at this price point, many Micro Centers are selling out, but it doesn't matter. What really matters is this $399.99 is being price matched. It's not getting dropped like if you go to the Walmart, Target, Best Buy websites. They're not dropping the price on their websites. You have to talk to customer service to get the price match. It doesn't matter though. The fact remains, you can load this up on your phone, go to customer service or checkout at a Walmart, Target, or Best Buy and get a price match right now. There are people all over Reddit, social media, X, Instagram, TikTok, and even right here on YouTube showing proof that people have gotten this price matched at all major retailers. So folks, this is the cheapest price Switch 2 has ever been. And while this is exciting, and look, I'm acting like really, really happy because this is just going to enable more people to get into the Switch 2 ecosystem, which will just convince more and more people to bring their games over. Also, this is really going to help sales in the United States. We already saw the bundle previously get $50 discount during Cyber Week, and now we're seeing the standard edition get a $50 discount. I don't know, is this going to be through the end of Christmas or something? I have no idea because Christmas is next week. What we do need to note here is, obviously, when you see a brand new system going on sale, there could be some red flags popping up in your mind. And that's not really surprising if you consider the November sales. The Nintendo Switch 2 probably underperformed retail expectations. In fact, the entire console industry underperformed expectations. We talked about this the other day when the Circana data came out a couple days ago. And yeah, it literally is an all-time 30-year low. 1.6 million pieces of hardware in total. That's like handheld PCs, the next console, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch 2, with PlayStation and Switch 2 doing the heaviest lifting. Only sold about 1.6 million total units combined in November. That's a 30-year low back to 1995 for November. So that's not great. That shows an economic issue going on. And also, the average price of a console has gone significantly up. I think in like 2019, it was like $239 was the average price of buying a console. And fast forward to today, it's like $439 is your average price to buy a console, at least in the month of November. So yeah, there's also been a big price hike, and yeah, the industry's feeling the crunch. The consumers are obviously, we're all feeling financial crunches. We have been really since probably after COVID, I suppose. Some of you felt it during COVID because, got laid off or whatever was going on. But those of us that didn't, hey, we're feeling more of the crunch today as prices are skyrocketing and paychecks aren't keeping up. That said, this is great news for consumers to see a cheaper Nintendo Switch 2. But yeah, obviously this could be an indication that Micro Center was struggling to sell units, although obviously the closest Micro Center to me is completely sold out. But again, it's probably not the biggest Micro Center out there. There's much more popular Micro Center stores. All of the local stores, though, are in stock with Switch 2, and they would price match this. So I want to make people aware of this because not everybody lives near a Micro Center, and that's what's crazy. You don't have to live near one. This is about price matching. So this price existing at all does nothing but benefit all consumers if you're savvy. That's the thing. A lot of people don't go to Micro Center. A lot of general consumers don't go to Micro Center. They will not be aware that this is happening and can be price matched. But you guys thankfully follow Nintendo Prime, and I'm going to get you like the best deals I can find out there. I'm going to inform as many people as I can because I know many of you don't shop at Micro Center either. Again, it's a PC store, and honestly, even like PC gamers, once you build your PC and you have your peripherals and your monitors and your stream decks and capture equipment and whatever else you're trying to buy, you probably don't go back to Micro Center very often unless you absolutely have to, or you just exist in the tech space, or you're like me and running a studio. And even I don't go to Micro Center often because there's that one that's out in Minneapolis, or it's not really in Minneapolis, but it's in Minnesota. That's still a bit of a haul for me to get there. So it's not a place I go to very often. I've only ever been there once, and that was to get all the stuff I needed to build a brand new computer for cheaper prices. It was worth the trip. The amount of money saved was worth it. So anyways, you guys, get those deals in. And that's not where things stop, because Innen, I don't know if you guys know them. They are a game publisher, and they have R-Type Dimensions 3 coming out. Now, this is a very interesting indie game, and originally when they announced this, it was going to be a game keycard on Nintendo Switch 2, and there was some backlash to this because it was the only version of the game that wasn't full physical. But Innen actually put out there publicly, and we talked about this, how they wanted to offer a full physical, but it didn't make sense for the base price of the game to do that, because it would just make it pretty much not profitable. They would basically lose money selling a physical copy of the game as a full physical. So what they wanted to do instead was offer a physical version with their deluxe or collector's editions, which cost much more, and thus, the price differences can help with some of the margins on those cartridges, right? So that's what they wanted to do, and that's how we found out that actually Nintendo has a policy where when you're releasing a game, you can't release it in multiple formats. What does that mean? They can't have a standard edition that is, say, on a game keycard, and a deluxe edition, a special edition, a collector's edition that's on a physical cartridge. Nintendo had a policy not allowing that. That is troublesome. And then the reports came out back on Tuesday that Nintendo is starting to offer third parties a 16 gigabyte and 32 gigabyte option for cartridges that, yes, are cheaper than the 64 gigabyte cartridge, but not significantly so. It's still quite pricey. So we're not really sure how much that will impact the market. Well, we've already seen one impact here, and that is with Innen Games. And Innen Games isn't just putting their game on physical now. They're doing something interesting with that we're going to talk about. They also confirmed the existence of these smaller cartridges from the words of a game developer. We have to talk about that as well, because it seems like Nintendo got very pissed at them for publicly confirming the story. Let's get into it. So, Innen Games, we're happy to share a positive update regarding the Nintendo Switch 2 version of R-Type Dimensions 3. We could recalculate production in a way that wasn't possible before. I wonder what changed. They literally just said earlier this week it didn't make sense and they could not make the physical cartridge work. They literally said that like back on Sunday and Monday before the news and before supposedly these smaller cartridges were made. All of a sudden the news breaks about the smaller cartridges being offered, and out of nowhere they're able to recalculate and make it work. I think you guys put two and two together what happened. That, $3 to $5 saved turned out to be a big deal for an indie developer. All right. As a result, we made the following decision. The entire European and US production, that's right, everything, standard, deluxe, collectors, etc., of R-Type Dimensions 3 for Switch 2 will be released on a full physical cartridge. But there's a little downside to this positive news. The price for the retail and the special edition of the Nintendo Switch 2 version will increase by, they're showing €10 here, maybe it'll be $10 US as well, due to the still higher production costs. However, as a small thank you to our early supporters, all early pre-order customers of the special edition will receive the game on cartridge at the original price they ordered. That is just them being Chads. Like, seriously, that's just a good move. Hey, we are going to offer this physically. We are going to charge, €10, $10 more. However, if you already had your pre-order in at the original price, we're not going to screw around. We're honoring that. You're still going to get the full physical at the price you pre-ordered at. That's pretty sick. Credits to Innen for that. That's called doing right by your customers. That's how you create customer loyalty. All right, next up. However, we'd like to sincerely thank the community for the passionate discussion, the feedback, and the patience over the past days. Your enthusiasm for physical games and for R-Type in particular made this solution possible. And we're very happy to deliver a true cartridge release. You can see it was a key card. Now it's going full physical. This is just great news. But see, the thing is, we know that it must have changed because of the cartridge, quote unquote, announcement, because Earlier, they put up a tweet that's now deleted. It happened today. Publisher Inning Games apparently corroborates recent rumors of Nintendo producing lower capacity Switch 2 cartridges with the new update on R-Type Dimension 3's physical Switch 2 release. Here are the actual quotes. There is no better timing. 2 days ago, Nintendo announced 2 new smaller cartridge sizes for Nintendo Switch 2. They didn't actually publicly announce it. That's what's funny. They did announce it based on my sources. They did announce it to game developers and their partners, but they didn't announce it publicly. And here's R-Type announcing it publicly. Nintendo didn't like that. This allows us to recalculate production in a way that wasn't possible before. As a result, we made the following decision. The entire European US production of R-Type Dimensions for Switch 2 will be released on full physical. And from Nintendo and others, they're never confirmed, but this statement from Switch 2 publisher heavily implies they were true. Inning Games added a disclaimer in the same post saying that as a result, they'd raise the price. So their original post about going full physical included Nintendo announcing the size differences. Well, here's the thing. As I said, Nintendo never actually announced it, and Inning Games had to publish a correction. Regarding Nintendo cartridge storage sizes. We would like to issue a correction regarding statements made earlier today in relation to Nintendo cartridge storage sizes. There has been no official announcement or confirmation from Nintendo concerning cartridge storage capacities. Any references to specific storage sizes should not be interpreted as official information from Nintendo. I am guessing, by the way, that's a PR line if I've ever heard one. I'm pretty sure Nintendo's PR firm, Golan Harris, wrote that line for them to tweet out. Because Nintendo was not happy that this indie developer, made this announcement before Nintendo was probably going to make it. If I had to guess, at the next financial meeting, Shuntaro Furukawa was planning to announce these new cartridge sizes, even though they're already being made available behind the scenes. There's NDAs and all this. You're not supposed to talk about it. Oh man, I hope that Inning Games only had to issue this apology and that's it, and that we can move on. Obviously, they were pretty excited because of what it means for their game, but let's go ahead and read the rest of this. At this time, we can only confirm that our upcoming release, R-Type Dimension 3, will be on a physical cartridge. They're not going to confirm what size, of course. No further technical details regarding cartridge specifications have been officially confirmed. We apologize for any confusion this may have caused and appreciate your understanding. Kind regards, your Indian team. Again, this is definitely a very, very PR statement. So they kind of did a whoopsie by saying Nintendo announced something they didn't announce, but they kind of did behind the scenes and telling partners this is now available and making it available. But Nintendo themselves hadn't made a public announcement. And again, it feels like something that Furukawa would have brought up at a investors meeting, which they probably were going to do the first week of February and have a small little section in there mentioning, hey, to further help our developing partners, we are decided to release multiple size cartridges and maybe even announce what sizes were available. So it does feel very much like this is an investors meeting type of announcement, and Inning Games jumped the gun. I don't know when R-Type 3 comes out. I didn't bother to look it up. I really apologize. I will link this stuff down below if you want to get some pre-orders and some orders in, and you want to support Inning Games for being one of the first indie titles to actually be full physical. But this brings up another question, and I asked this question over on X, and I think it's important for us to consider what this could mean and what you're willing to do. So I asked, just to comment on them specifically going physical, it includes a price hike. Do you think consumers will accept en masse third parties and indies going full physical if the compromise is to increase the price over other versions? Because yes, it is more expensive than PlayStation 5, Xbox, etc. So would you be cool if companies increase the price by $10 or $15 specifically for the Switch 2 one? And this is where things get complicated. I think for indie titles, there are definitely some that you would say, sure, like if Hollow Knight Silksong came out and released a physical version for $30, I think people would be like, oh yeah, we'll get that full physical for $30 on Switch 2, no problem. But even still, it could actually hurt certain sales of indie games, and it does mean there's a disparity between the digital version and the physical version for prices. Now, there are those out there that think there should be a disparity anyways, that digital should come down in price because it doesn't have all of the overhead and the retailer cuts that physical has. So I understand that people already think there should be a price disparity, but this isn't what we mean. We don't mean increase the price of physical and maintaining the price of digital. Because the problem is, if you accept this and you accept indie developers doing it, and we think that this is okay, and I mean, this isn't a problem, But it's also going to encourage AAA to do the same. So where Cyberpunk, released at their standard pricing on a full physical cartridge, imagine in the future, like Resident Evil 9 comes out, and it's actually a little bit more expensive on Switch 2 for the physical version because of the cartridge. Now, we already know that's going to be a game key card, so I don't think, unless they change their mind, I guess there's still time for them to change their mind, but we already know that that's probably at least going to be a game key card. So that's the thing. Like, AAA games could now be $80, maybe even $85, $90 on Nintendo Switch 2 to get a full physical game. But I will say this, and I am going to note that, like, third parties and indie developers are going to try to do what the customers want. So let's say Resident Evil 9 comes out and it's $80 on Nintendo Switch 2, and it's $80 because they're doing a full physical cartridge, and that's just helping cover the cost of the cartridge and the overhead for that. If physical sales are terrible, you could probably see them pull that cartridge entirely and just leave it as a digital only release. That's kind of the thing. Like, the consumer base will determine if we're willing to accept slightly higher prices to have a full physical on cartridge version of games. There are many of you out there that are definitely willing to do this. I know there's going to be comments down below right now being like, oh yeah, I'm totally willing to spend an extra $10 to have a full physical. And on a system like Switch 2, where physical is like real physical, like you put the cartridge in, you do not need to download updates. You can just play the game right away. There's a lot of value there for people that really hold on to physical collections. But you got to pay more for it. So would the general consumer accept such a notion, or would they scoff and be more unlikely to buy the game because of such a choice? And then some people would go, well, AAA developers are already charging $70. Why don't they just eat the cost? Well, 30% of that $70 goes to Nintendo. You have the overhead cost of the cartridge itself. And before you know it, like, the retailer cuts, the developer's left with like $15 on that copy sold. And for a game that cost them, $200 million to make, that is not good enough margins for them. So yeah, this is going to be a very, very interesting, conversation, but I'm very curious what you guys have to say down below. We're going to have to talk about this next week. We've actually brought up on the Nintendo Byte podcast in the past, this idea of, hey, charging more for physical. It's a conversation, though, that was only hypothetical at the time. Now we're seeing it actually happen. And with it happening, now we have to actually talk about the reality of this and what we think the general consumer base will do. Because, look, we're not the general consumer base. We're content creators. Thunderstash and Gamebird collect games. Eric is, though, more of a general consumer. But, will this make a difference for people? I guess we'll find out. So, yeah, Switch 2. Going down in price. We're seeing smaller size cartridges seemingly confirmed in the works, and one indie game using them already and charging more. Does this mean the 16 gigabyte carts are $10? I doubt it. I think they're probably more like 15, but hey, getting 2/3 of that cost back. So you're only eating $5. They were willing to do that. So yeah, let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comments below. I am Nathaniel Robojanz from Nintendo Prime, and we'll be back tomorrow with another news video. Bye, everyone.